Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're not just looking at a Turkish novel, we are, I think, wading into a dense philosophical battlefield. We're diving into Hakan Günday's Kinyas and Kayra.
And it's a masterpiece. It's often called the defining work of Turkish underground literature for a very good reason.
Right, and if you're thinking of, say, The Rage Against Society and Fight Club, or maybe the raw, hedonistic vibe of Train Spotting, this book lives in that same dark neighborhood.
It absolutely does. But it's a much darker house on that street, I'd say.
So what's the difference then? The sources suggest Günday has somehow dialed the psychological intensity up to 11, it feels.
Well,
roar.
it is. I think the core difference is the sheer depth of the introspection. I mean, Fight Club critiques society from the outside, but Kinyas and Kayra is this incredibly intense study of two men who've internalized it all.
They've absorbed all the perceived corruption.
Exactly, and they've chosen this total nihilistic revolt against it. The book just delves into these suppressed, dark secrets of the human soul that leaves you with this constant, uneasy feeling.
Because the honesty is it's mind-blowing and, frankly, quite disturbing.
Utterly.
And that is precisely our mission today, to unpack this dark manifesto, not just as a story, but as a kind of philosophical ledger.
Right, focusing on that intense duality, Kinyas and Kayra. They start from the exact same point of refusal, but their final destinations.
Could not be more different. Radically opposing choices about existence itself.
And the novel sets this up immediately in this profoundly claustrophobic setting. A cheap hotel room, room 17.
That's the stage for their great reckoning.
It is. And Kinyas forces Kayra to write, to document everything they've lived.
So it begins not with action, but with a memoir written under duress. They become, in a way, the narrators of their own destruction.
Precisely. Which instantly frames their entire journey as this act of documentation as much as it is an escape.
And that launches them into what you might call the geography of escape.
A vast geography at that. Their physical journey spans continents, doesn't it?
It's sprawling. We follow them from a drug deal gone wrong in Abidjan, through Burkina Faso, then all the way to Veracruz in Mexico, before they eventually circle back to Istanbul.
And they're always working, smuggling, trafficking.
Yeah.
Constantly moving.
But the crucial insight here, and this really is key, is that all that travel is almost irrelevant to their actual problem.
Yes, this is not a chase. They aren't running from the police. It's a desperate, frantic attempt to flee their own minds.
The classic existential trap. You can change the geography, but you can't.
You can't escape yourself. And Kayra knows this. He says his actual travels are only in his mind.
So the physical movement is just a symptom, an external projection of this deep internal crisis.
And the depth of that crisis is laid bare in Mexico. It's a chilling moment when Kinyas meets a woman in a bar who is HIV positive.
Right. And his reaction is, it's not what you'd expect.
Not at all. He sees her not as a person, but as an Azrael, the angel of death. And the prospect of contracting the disease is, to him, a blessing.
A blessing. How could that possibly be a blessing?
Because their life is so utterly meaningless. For Kinyas, a terminal illness provides a definitive biological deadline. It gives him an ending he doesn't have to choose himself.
So the universe would be doing the job for him, taking away the burden of choice.
Exactly. It's a perfect encapsulation of their despair.
And that despair is the perfect launching point for the core split in the novel, the dual manifesto. Two men, same void, but radically different paths out. Let's start with Kayra.
Kayra embodies absolute refusal. His destruction is, it's internal. It's intellectual. It traces all the way back to his childhood, to this discovery of pathological lying, what the sources call mythomania.
Right, mythomania, which is essentially compulsive lying. But how does that connect to his nihilism?
Well, it's vital, because at age 14, he realizes he can just remake reality with words. It leads him to believe there's no objective truth worth anchoring yourself to.
So life itself becomes the burden, the enemy almost.
Yes. So much so that he defines suicide not as weakness, but as an act of self-defense.
Self-defense against existence? That's a fascinating and terrifying perspective, isn't it?
It is. And his goal becomes a mental death. He tries to forget everything. Names, faces. He chooses the color black as a symbol. He wants to become a bodiless mind in infinite nothingness.
Total erasure.
Total.
So while Kayra is planning this vanishing act, Kinyas, his partner in crime, starts moving in the opposite direction, the reluctant returner. What pulls him back?
It's a pull toward connection, I think. While Kayra is discarding memories, Kinyas starts remembering his family, his childhood. And in that hotel room, he makes a choice. He leaves. He decides to go home, instead of following through on their death pact.
And this isn't some easy, miraculous conversion. It's a hard, physical process.
It's a profound commitment to reality.
Yeah.
I mean, the man who saw HIV as a blessing secretly goes and gets tested. He starts treatment. He chooses to fight for a life, even a compromised one.
And that final act of sending the writings back to Kayra, that feels like his last plea.
It is his manifesto for life. He's hoping Kayra will read it and see that nihilism is a dead end. His message is hope, love, friendship. The belief that life is, against all their evidence, real and beautiful.
It's powerful. And speaking of their shared evidence, let's touch on the extreme acts that defined their journey, this search for feeling.
This is where you see the transactional nature of their violence. They weren't just in it for the money. They used crime as a way to feel something in a world they saw as meaningless.
They were actively pursuing the boundaries of evil, testing, and I'm quoting here, how disgusting we can be. Why? What was the point?
They were trying to fill what the sources call the semantic void.
The meaning vacuum.
Precisely. When life has no inherent purpose, you seek intense sensation, even negative sensation, just to prove you still exist.
A tragic sort of self-stimulation. And Kayra's pattern here is especially disturbing.
It is. When inflicting pain on others stopped giving him that feeling, he turned the violence inward, towards his own body. He needed physical pain to mirror the existential pain he felt inside.
So he was manufacturing his own anguish just to make sure he hadn't gone completely numb.
Exactly.
Hey.
And this transgression is the very heart of the book's identity as underground literature. Their acts are a violent critique of the civilized world, which they see as just as corrupt, only more hypocritical.
Kinyas makes that point explicitly, doesn't he, when he rails against the banking system?
He does. He calls it the house of deadly poison. They reject society because they see its foundations, finance, law, even family, as fundamentally rotten.
Which brings us to that final critical split, the final question. We have two definitive endings that perfectly summarize their manifestos.
We do. Kinyas, despite everything, commits to humanity. He chooses adaptation, social structures. The analysis shows he's associated with indicators of family, social life, peace.
And Kayra?
Kayra achieves his goal. He severs his mental connection to the world and lies down to embrace nothingness. His psychological indicators are, unsurprisingly, death, weapons, and the void.
The path they chose became their psychological reality, which leaves us with the novel's central question. Where is the real courage? In Kayra's absolute, uncompromising refusal, or in Kinyas's incredibly difficult choice to return to a society he hated?
It's a profound debate. You could argue Kayra's choice is purer, in a way. It's the logical conclusion of their shared philosophy. But the novel seems to suggest the real courage lies with Kinyas.
Why is that? Because its fight is never over.
I think so. Kayra's act is devastating, but it's final. Kinyas has to wake up every single day and fight the urge to be who he was. The journey back to something is so much harder than the journey to nothingness.
You see that in his final thoughts when he says the world is too slippery.
That's the perfect word for it, isn't it? He says that returning to a normal life feels like watching a car crash. It takes this immense, draining effort just to stay grounded and not slip back into the seductive ease of nihilism.
So the ultimate insight from Gunday's Dark Manifesto is that the commitment to a mundane, slippery world, that daily grind of staying present, that might just be the most painful and the most rebellious act of all.
It's a difficult, sobering thought to end on, for sure.
Indeed. And something for you to mull on. If Kinyas must dedicate so much effort just to remain grounded in a compromised world, what happens when he experiences a moment of genuine, profound happiness? Does that joy risk knocking him off balance and sending him right back into the void? Or does it finally solidify his choice to return? Something to explore on your own.